Humanity has invented incredible things: electricity, the internet, vaccines. But for every genius breakthrough, there's a forgotten disaster someone actually built, patented, and tried to sell. Baby cages hanging from windows. Helmets that isolated you from reality. A nuclear-powered car with a reactor in the trunk. These aren't jokes. These are 32 real inventions that made it past the "maybe this is stupid" phase. And you need to see every single one. 1. Sunglasses make you look cool. Window blinds keep the sun out of your living room. So what happens when some visionary decides these two things absolutely need to become one? You get the Venetian blind sunglasses. We're talking actual miniature horizontal slats, exactly like the ones hanging in your kitchen window, shrunk down and mounted onto eyeglass frames. The concept was sun protection, but the result was essentially viewing reality through a stack of tiny fences. Sure, they worked perfectly if the sun was attacking you at one specific angle, and you had zero interest in seeing anything peripheral, like traffic, staircases, or other human beings. Stylish? That's a generous interpretation. Functional? Only if your main function was looking bizarre. They delivered all the charm of home decor plastered across your face and all the practicality of navigating the world blindfolded. 2. Imagine yourself as a refined cigarette aficionado somewhere around the early 1900s. You light up your smoke, you feel sophisticated, life is good. Then, the sky opens up and rain starts falling. Catastrophe. Your burning tobacco gets soggy, your entire persona crumbles. What's a dedicated smoker supposed to do in such trying circumstances? Thankfully, some unnamed genius solved this crisis by creating the cigarette holder umbrella. This wasn't an umbrella to keep you dry. This was a hilariously tiny parasol that attached exclusively to your cigarette holder, shielding only the lit tip from precipitation. Picture a fully grown adult standing in a downpour, completely drenched from head to toe, but vigilantly protecting one single cigarette with a comically miniature umbrella. The dedication to nicotine addiction here is almost inspiring if it weren't so magnificently absurd. Different times, different priorities. 3. Early automobile travel was essentially an extreme sport. Cars were brand new contraptions. Stopping them was more suggestion than guarantee, and pedestrians had this annoying tendency to exist in the same space as moving vehicles. So what was the brilliant, human-friendly solution engineers came up with? The pedestrian catcher, naturally. Mounted on the front of cars, these devices were basically enormous scooping mechanisms, kind of like the cow catchers you see on old trains, engineered to gently collect any unlucky person who happened to be in the vehicle's trajectory. Imagine being tenderly swept up by a moving metal contraption and deposited onto the hood like a confused hood ornament. The marketing probably claimed it reduced fatalities by turning victims into accidental passengers. Eventually, society decided that maybe improving brakes and teaching basic traffic awareness made more sense than turning cars into human collection devices. 4. Fashion meeting safety rarely produces elegant results, and the 1920s proved this spectacularly with the inflatable life vest blouse. This appeared to be a perfectly normal, even fashionable blouse you'd wear to any social occasion. Hidden inside, however, was a secret survival mechanism. If your luxury ocean liner suddenly decided to become a submarine, you could trigger the device and watch portions of your outfit balloon outward, transforming you into a floating life preserver. Imagine the scene at an elegant shipboard dinner. Oh my, is the vessel taking on water? Pardon me while my torso inflates to triple its original dimensions. The intention of wearable emergency equipment is admirable, but the execution was probably startling for everyone involved and absolutely devastating for any silhouette you were attempting. It was fashion that declared, "Survival is my priority, looking normal is secondary." 5. Surfing looks incredible, but what if you're landlocked or the ocean is flat as a pancake? Early entrepreneurs tackled this dilemma by creating the artificial surf machine, primitive ancestors of today's wave pools. Forget those perfect, glassy waves you see at modern surf parks. These were massive concrete basins where industrial machinery worked overtime trying to generate something vaguely resembling a surfable wave. The results were typically either sad little ripples that couldn't challenge a floating bath toy, or violent, unpredictable water surges that seemed personally offended by anyone attempting to ride them. Early wave generation technology was basically a chaotic experiment in hydraulic disappointment that probably produced more confused swimmers spitting out chlorinated water than actual surfing moments. It was an admirable attempt to bring ocean vibes inland that usually ended in soggy failure. 6. For the smoker who found consuming one cigarette at a time painfully slow and inefficient, inventors delivered the chain-smoking device. This wasn't merely a stylish cigarette case. This was a full apparatus, often a modified pipe or some multi-pronged holding contraption, allowing users to smoke several cigarettes at once. Why enjoy one when you could simultaneously inhale the output of 5, 10, or an entire pack? Picture someone strolling down the boulevard resembling a human smokestack, exhaling from a whole bouquet of burning tobacco products. It was the ultimate declaration of commitment to nicotine, a monument to excess that was essentially a speed run toward respiratory failure. Health advisories clearly hadn't gained much traction when this masterpiece of lung destruction was dreamed up. Someone looked at a single cigarette and thought, "This is rookie numbers." 7. Hollywood in the 1930s was obsessed with perfection. Flawless faces weren't accidents. They were engineered with scientific precision. And what tool achieved this mathematical beauty? The beauty micrometer, invented by makeup legend Max Factor himself. This nightmare-inducing metal contraption resembled something from a medieval torture chamber and was strapped directly onto an actress's skull. It featured dozens of adjustable metal strips and tiny screws that measured every facial contour, every curve, every supposed imperfection down to microscopic fractions. The purpose? Identifying exactly where makeup corrections were needed to create the mathematically ideal face. It looked less like a beauty device and more like equipment designed to extract secrets or perform experimental surgery. Imagine sitting motionless while someone literally calculates your flaws with calipers. It's a deeply unsettling reminder of how truly strange the pursuit of perfection can become. 8. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce an 18th century engineering marvel that fooled royalty, intellectuals, and even Napoleon himself. Behold the mechanical Turk, a life-sized mannequin dressed in elaborate Ottoman robes, seated at an ornate cabinet playing chess against all challengers and winning. This wasn't some jerky, primitive machine. The Turk played with genuine skill, strategic brilliance, and dramatic flair. It toured Europe and America for decades, becoming a legendary sensation. How did this miracle of automation work? Advanced clockwork? Supernatural powers? Actually, a human chess master was crammed inside the cleverly designed cabinet the entire time, operating levers and making moves in extremely uncomfortable conditions. The greatest chess-playing robot in history was literally just a dedicated, probably very sweaty, extremely cramped human pulling strings. Imagine being that guy, folded up inside for hours, silently cursing every single pawn move for the sake of showmanship. 9. Welcome to the fabulous 1970s, an era defined by magnificent hair and questionable decisions about protecting it. You've invested hours teasing, spraying, and sculpting your glorious bouffant or feathered masterpiece into perfection. Now you need to shower. The terror. How do you shield your architectural achievement from water damage? The shower hood was your salvation. This wasn't a delicate, cute shower cap. This was an industrial-strength plastic containment unit that engulfed your entire head, sealing around your neck, making you resemble either a hazmat cleanup worker or an astronaut preparing for bathtub liftoff. Practical? Perhaps if claustrophobia and emerging resembling a steamed broccoli didn't bother you. Fashionable? Not remotely. It was an invention that loudly announced, "My hairstyle takes priority over oxygen circulation and spatial awareness." The things people endure for good hair. 10. Struggling to focus? Distractions ruining your productivity? Forget noise-canceling earbuds because in 1925, science fiction pioneer Hugo Gernsback introduced the isolator helmet. This wasn't some streamlined, futuristic headpiece. This was a massive, terrifying metal dome, possibly forged in some industrial nightmare, that completely encased your entire skull. It promised total sensory elimination with heavy soundproofing and vision restricted to two minuscule eye slits aimed directly at whatever you were working on. It even included its own oxygen supply because, apparently, the intensity of concentration might cause you to forget breathing entirely. Wearing it made you look less like a productive worker and more like a supervillain plotting world domination from a welding shop. The primary thing it successfully isolated users from? Any remaining shred of dignity. Focus achieved, self-respect destroyed. 11. Washing your own hair manually seemed like excessive labor to people in the 1930s, apparently. This dissatisfaction birthed the automatic hair washing machine. This wasn't a sleek, modern salon chair. This was a monstrous, helmet-like apparatus that looked transplanted from a mad scientist's secret laboratory. You'd take a seat, this enormous dome would descend upon your head, and then various nozzles would hopefully dispense water, shampoo, and rinse while possibly terrifying mechanical appendages massaged your scalp. Or maybe it just assaulted you with aggressive water jets. Advertisements promised effortless convenience and thorough cleaning. The reality probably delivered water flooding your ear canals, shampoo burning your corneas, and the distinct sensation of being trapped inside a malfunctioning car wash designed specifically for skulls. It really makes you appreciate the beautiful simplicity of a bottle and two functioning hands. 12. War is horrific, and during the World War eras, chemical weapon attacks were a genuinely terrifying possibility. How do you protect the most defenseless, the babies, from such invisible threats? You create the gas mask stroller. This wasn't a regular baby carriage with extra cushioning. This was a completely sealed, often disturbingly coffin-shaped container with its own air filtration system and a viewing window that transformed infants into tiny, bewildered astronauts on deeply grim missions. Some designs were genuinely nightmarish, resembling props from post-apocalyptic films. While these contraptions emerged from real desperation and genuine protective instincts, seeing them now is a haunting reminder of darker times and the extraordinary measures people took when facing unimaginable dangers. It's an invention that perfectly combines fear and creativity into one extremely unsettling package. 13. Let's kick off our parade of questionable historical innovations with the vibrating belt machine. Imagine this scene. You're strapped into a hefty apparatus with a thick canvas belt wrapped around your problem areas. Flip the switch, and the machine proceeds to shake, jiggle, and pummel your flesh with merciless vibrations. The promise? Dissolve fat, sculpt muscles, eliminate cellulite, all while standing there passively, looking like you were auditioning for an industrial paint mixing demonstration. These contraptions were everywhere during their heyday, from gyms to beauty parlors to mail-order catalogs. People genuinely believed they could be aggressively vibrated into peak physical condition. It was less a fitness breakthrough and more an invitation to have your organs reorganized by overly enthusiastic machinery. The only thing it reliably consumed was electricity and whatever remained of your self-respect. 14. Ever dreamed about your own personal flying contraption, soaring triumphantly above all those suckers stuck in traffic? The 1950s attempted to make this dream reality with the Hiller VZ-1 Pawnee, affectionately known as the flying platform. Picture this scenario. You, standing heroically atop what is essentially a giant, completely exposed fan pointed directly at the ground. Steering? Accomplished by courageously leaning your body whichever direction you wanted to go, like wrestling a bucking mechanical bull that also functions as an industrial leaf blower. Developed for military applications, soldiers were supposed to gracefully float over obstacles. Graceful was never in this thing's vocabulary. Pilots appeared to be performing desperate interpretive dance routines just to avoid becoming rapidly descending lawn ornaments. It screamed like angry metallic insects gargling rocks, and probably gave anyone underneath an impromptu haircut and sudden religious awakening. The military eventually concluded that traditional ground transportation had its merits. 15. Long before virtual reality headsets became lightweight and relatively mainstream, the 1960s offered a glimpse into personal display technology with the Televisor. These weren't your stylish augmented reality glasses. Imagine strapping two miniature, grainy, low-resolution television screens directly against your eyeballs, housed within a bulky helmet contraption that probably weighed more than your actual skull. The promise was intimate, immersive television viewing. The reality was likely severe eye strain, debilitating headaches, and constant anxiety about colliding with furniture since your peripheral vision had become a distant memory. It was an ambitious, though tremendously clunky step toward personalized screen time, but it made wearers resemble discount cyborgs with serious television dependencies. The future was arriving, but it was heavy, uncomfortable, and absolutely devastating for your neck muscles. 16. Humanity's eternal quest for better sleep has produced genuinely strange solutions throughout history. Consider the anti-snoring devices from the late 1800s and early 1900s. These weren't discreet nasal strips. We're discussing elaborate contraptions featuring straps, buckles, and chin supports engineered to physically clamp your jaw closed or contort your head into supposedly snore-proof positions. Some resembled medieval restraint devices. Others looked like harnesses designed for miniature livestock. Imagine attempting restful sleep while bound up like a holiday turkey. The only thing these devices probably guaranteed was a stiff neck, an aching jaw, and a partner still wide awake, either from your continued noises or from silently mocking your absurd headgear. Peaceful dreams were almost certainly not part of the package. 17. Imagine a smoke-saturated party in the early to mid-20th century. The atmosphere is thick enough to slice, your eyes are streaming tears, and you're fairly certain you just inhaled someone's entire cigarette involuntarily. But abandoning the fascinating conversation is unthinkable. What's a dedicated socialite supposed to do? Obviously, deploy your personal rebreather for smoky rooms. These compact gadgets, often resembling miniature gas masks or peculiar metal snorkels, were designed to let you breathe somewhat cleaner air without actually leaving the premises. You'd appear completely ridiculous, like a desperate fish trying to filter toxic soup, but at least you wouldn't miss any delicious gossip. It was an absurd solution to a problem easily solved by simply stepping outside momentarily. But apparently, fresh air outside wasn't worth missing a single moment of nicotine-infused socializing. 18. Need to transport heavy equipment across terrain so rough that roads are merely theoretical concepts? Forget wheels entirely, you need legs. During the 1960s, General Electric unveiled the walking truck, officially designated the cybernetic anthropomorphous machine. This four-legged 3,000-pound monster looked like something escaped from science fiction films, basically a less glamorous cousin of those AT-ST walkers. The operator sat inside, controlling the legs through hand and foot movements mimicking walking motions. The engineering was genuinely impressive. The problems? It maxed out at an exhilarating 5 miles per hour, required enormously complex operation, and consumed fuel at alarming rates. While it could theoretically step over obstacles, it mostly demonstrated that sometimes sticking with boring old wheels is dramatically simpler. It was a giant, lumbering, magnificent failure of ambitious engineering. 19. The eternal pursuit of adorable facial features. In 1936, if nature hadn't blessed you with cute dimples, despair was unnecessary. You could simply purchase the dimple maker. This delightful apparatus consisted of a springy metal contraption worn directly on your face. It featured 2 small knobs or pressure pads that pressed firmly into your cheeks, supposedly encouraging dimple formation through persistent force and sheer determination. Instructions recommended wearing it for extended periods. The results? Probably aching cheeks, temporary surface indentations, and profound disillusionment rather than charming permanent dimples. It's a classic demonstration of optimism triumphing over basic human anatomy, a reminder that certain beauty fads belong permanently in the "what were they thinking" archives. One can only imagine the explanations. What's that contraption on your face? Oh, merely my cheek compression torture device. I mean, dimple enhancer. 20. Now here's an invention that will make your jaw hit the floor, then make you want to embrace your children tightly while thanking modern safety regulations. From the wonderfully unhinged 1930s, I present baby cages. Yes, exactly what that sounds like. Literal wire mesh enclosures designed to be mounted outside apartment windows so infants could receive their recommended daily allowance of fresh urban air while suspended multiple stories above unforgiving pavement. Because apparently, a gentle breeze combined with vehicle exhaust and the ever-present threat of gravitational consequences was considered optimal childcare. Marketed to apartment dwellers lacking outdoor space, these contraptions resemble something you'd use for airing out a particularly misbehaving pet, not a human infant. One shudders imagining what a sudden wind gust or an overly inquisitive pigeon might have caused. Thankfully, this high-altitude, high-anxiety parenting trend eventually went extinct. 21. The Cold War era was defined by nuclear anxiety, backyard bomb shelters, and apparently radiation-proof underwear. Yes, that's a real thing that existed. During a period when atomic annihilation seemed constantly imminent, certain enterprising or perhaps opportunistic businesses decided to sell undergarments allegedly offering protection against harmful radiation. These weren't lead-lined protective equipment. Typically, they were ordinary-looking briefs or underwear, manufactured with some supposedly special fabric claiming radiation-blocking capabilities. Did they actually function? Almost certainly not in any meaningful way against actual nuclear events or significant fallout exposure. It was primarily psychological comfort, a flimsy textile barrier against invisible, terrifying threats. It's a peculiar yet poignant example of how fear generates genuinely questionable consumer products. Because obviously, when nuclear bombs are falling, your primary concern is definitely protecting your undergarments. 22. The fantasy of a vehicle that functions both on land and water has persisted throughout automotive history. Why choose between driving and boating when you could have both? Enter the Amphicar, a German engineering experiment from the 1960s, promising exactly this dual functionality. It resembled a slightly bathtub-shaped automobile, and with some lever adjustments, its wheels would somewhat retract while propellers engaged, transforming your daily driver into a, well, extremely slow watercraft. The fundamental issue? It performed mediocrely as a land vehicle, being leak-prone and underwhelming speed-wise, and equally mediocre as a boat, being sluggish, awkward to maneuver, and still, predictably, prone to leaking. Owners frequently joked it was the fastest car in water and fastest boat on highways. It was a master of mediocre compromises, a charmingly flawed novelty proving that attempting to be two things simultaneously often means excellence at neither. 23. You'd assume a certified genius like Thomas Edison, the man who practically invented modern civilization, possessed the golden touch, right? Well, prepare yourself, because not every brainstorm was a brilliant illumination. During the early 1900s, Edison became completely fixated on concrete, not merely for building construction, but for absolutely everything. He envisioned complete houses poured from single molds, furnished entirely with concrete accessories. Yes, you could own a stylish concrete bathtub, an elegant concrete staircase, even a charming concrete piano for entertaining guests, assuming they didn't mind risking permanent posterior indentations from your concrete furniture. The vision was affordable, durable housing. The outcome? The molds were prohibitively expensive. The houses were damp, freezing, and about as customizable as solid stone. Stubbing your toe on a concrete bed frame was probably a daily, soul-destroying occurrence. A monumentally heavy concept that thankfully never gained traction. 24. You know what cinema was desperately lacking in earlier decades? A good substantial whiff of whatever the filmmaker imagined. Enter Smell-O-Vision and its equally aromatic competitor, Aromarama from the ambitious 1950s and 60s. The concept was pure olfactory enthusiasm. Pump custom-designed scents into theaters at critical moments to completely immerse audiences. Flower field appearing on screen? Enjoy floral fragrances. Pie baking? Sweet cinnamon wafts through the theater. The problem? Technology had different ideas entirely. Scents lingered, combined into unholy chemical combinations, or arrived comically delayed, making audiences sniff for roses during car crash sequences. Imagine battlefield aromas blending with romantic first kiss perfumes. It was less an enhancement and more nasal assault, demonstrating that certain cinematic experiences function better limited to sight and sound exclusively. The entire concept simply reeked of failure. 25. Concerned about street crime during the swinging 60s? Exhausted by villains attempting to snatch your handbag? Some creative minds developed the Anti-bandit bag, a purse with an extremely confrontational personality. These weren't ordinary satchels. If a thief attempted to steal one, it would aggressively retaliate. Certain models emitted dense smoke clouds, others sprayed permanent dye, and particularly combative versions featured chains that would spring out and handcuff the would-be criminal directly to the bag. Picture the scenario. A startled pickpocket suddenly chained to a smoking, dye-spraying handbag in the middle of a crowded street. While self-defending accessories sound entertaining conceptually, the practicalities were problematic. Accidental activations in busy areas? Permanently staining your own wardrobe? Being physically attached to your shopping forever? It was a bold, somewhat excessive approach to personal security that probably created more chaos than it prevented. 26. Gather around, gentlemen, for a tale of grooming gone spectacularly, hilariously wrong from the late 1800s. Forget your modern multi-blade razors and moisturizing aftershaves. Prepare for the group shaving machine. Because why shave in privacy when you could participate in synchronized, potentially catastrophic facial hair removal ceremonies with 11 of your closest friends? The apparatus allegedly positioned men seated in a circle, chins resting on designated supports, while central machinery powered multiple blades or abrasive brushes simultaneously. One sneeze, one hiccup, one slightly miscalibrated mechanism, and suddenly you're witnessing scenes from bargain basement horror cinema. Beyond the obvious hygiene nightmares of communal blade sharing, the sheer potential for disastrous malfunction makes this among history's most terrifyingly stupid inventions. Let's all appreciate personal safety and individual razors. 27. Before electric toothbrushes existed, before even consistently bristled manual versions, dental hygiene was essentially the Wild West of bizarre concepts. Consider the tooth polisher, a rather alarming Victorian-era device typically consisting of a handle with a rotating head, sometimes manufactured from leather, felt, or even ivory, onto which you'd apply tooth powder. Some required vigorous manual cranking or rubbing, while others featured actual clockwork mechanisms. Imagine winding up your toothbrush like a mechanical toy soldier before engaging in plaque warfare. The effectiveness remained questionable, and the potential for gum damage was probably considerable. It was dramatically different from today's gentle vibrations, more comparable to applying power tools to your teeth. You'd certainly feel like something significant happened to your mouth, though whether beneficial remains entirely uncertain. 28. The 1950s overflowed with unbridled optimism regarding atomic energy. It would power cities, homes, and naturally, automobiles. Enter the Ford Nucleon, a concept car perfectly embodying its era's enthusiasm. This wasn't a hybrid vehicle. This was a completely nuclear-powered automobile. The concept involved a small, self-contained nuclear reactor positioned in the trunk area, providing years of emissions-free driving on a single uranium charge. What could possibly go wrong with having a miniature nuclear facility inches behind your posterior, separated only by hopefully very robust shielding? Parking lot fender benders would have acquired entirely new catastrophic dimensions. While it never progressed beyond concept stage, thankfully, the Ford Nucleon remains a wonderfully absurd monument to atomic age exuberance and a terrifying exploration of automotive possibilities best left unexplored. 29. The age of chivalry demanded gentlemen tip their hats when greeting ladies. But what if forgetfulness struck? Or your arms were occupied carrying perhaps other failed inventions? Fear not, the self-tipping hat machine existed to preserve your reputation. This ingenious, somewhat over-engineered device was a mechanism, frequently concealed within the hat itself or connected via subtle strings, that automatically lifted your hat at appropriate moments, possibly triggered by nodding or subtle gestures. Because manually raising your own headwear was clearly an unbearable physical burden. Imagine the potential for comedic disasters: your hat enthusiastically greeting every street lamp, or vigorously saluting passing dogs and random pigeons. It was an attempt at automating social etiquette, which typically signals that etiquette itself is experiencing difficulties. A truly distinguished solution for the terminally lazy or profoundly socially awkward gentleman. 30. Summer heat overwhelming you? Feeling overheated and uncomfortable? Why not strap a miniature cooling unit directly onto your skull? The personal air conditioner hat attempted bringing localized climate control to your cranium. These marvels of questionable engineering typically featured bulky hats containing built-in fans, sometimes battery-powered, occasionally incorporating tiny Freon-based cooling systems that probably leaked condensation down your neck continuously. You'd resemble a character from low-budget science fiction with a whirring, possibly noisy contraption balanced precariously atop your head. Did it function? Marginally, perhaps? Did it make you appear completely outlandish? Absolutely, and undeniably. It was the ultimate fashion sacrifice for slightly reduced forehead temperature, demonstrating that when combating heat, certain people will literally attempt anything regardless of appearance consequences. 31. Now, from the brilliant minds of France, circa 1932, an invention that courageously asked, why excel at one thing on land when you could be spectacularly awkward at two things, both on land and water? Ladies and gentlemen, presenting the cyclmer. This was an amphibious bicycle, a monument to misguided ambition. On solid ground, it functioned as a bicycle. But attach its two enormous hollow drum-shaped wheels, which doubled as flotation devices, and suddenly you were theoretically ready to pedal across the local pond. In theory only, apparently. Reports suggest it handled like riding a particularly stubborn hippopotamus on land, thanks to those cumbersome floats. And in water? It moved with the blistering velocity of a snail recovering from heavy dining, steered by a separate, equally awkward rudder. The ultimate transportation paradox, designed for versatility, achieving excellence only in being magnificently impractical everywhere. 32. Picture this scenario. You're attending an elegant Victorian dinner party, conversation flowing brilliantly. Then disaster strikes. You've dropped your fork. Bending down is so terribly undignified. What if your corset restricts movement? Fear not, for the reaching tongs for invalids and stout persons existed to rescue your reputation. These weren't ordinary kitchen utensils. These were often ornately decorated, long-handled grabbing devices, sometimes spring-loaded, designed for retrieving dropped items without the shameful act of stooping over. While marketed toward those with limited mobility or more substantial builds, one can only imagine the clattering chaos and potential for knocking over wine glasses as people wielded these metallic appendages across dining tables. It was dignity achieved through remote control, a truly refined method of avoiding any unnecessary physical exertion while creating maximum dinner party disruption. 32 inventions. 32 moments where someone looked at their creation and thought, yes, this is it, and somehow nobody stopped them. Drop a comment right now. Which one of these would you actually try if safety wasn't a concern? Be honest. We're all a little curious about that flying platform. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next round of historical stupidity. And smash that like button, it takes less effort than a self-tipping hat.